Hello and welcome to the Bestseller Experiment, where we explore the inner game of writing and life and inspire you to start, finish, and publish a best-selling book. I'm Mark DeVoe, and today we have an incredible guest. Mark Victor Hansen is known as the co-author of Chicken Soup for the Soul, as if that needs any introduction, Mark. The series and the brand setting world records, achieving #1 in New York Times bestseller 59 times with over 500 million books sold, and becoming the Time magazine publishing phenomena of the decade. Mark's a prolific writer and also co-author of many popular books such as The Power of Focus, The Aladdin Factor, Dare to Win, and also co-authored most recently Ask, The Bridge from Your Dreams to Your Destiny with his wife Crystal. He has also co-wrote the biography of Reverend Ike, one of his greatest mentors. And in 2002, Mark's own remarkable life story was documented by author and biographer Mitzi Perdue in the book Relentless. You got a copy of that to hand, Mark? Here we go. Excellent. There's the copy for everyone on YouTube. You can see this. And the book is one of a growing number of titles in Mark's legacy project, the Mark Victor Hansen Library. So Mark Victor Hansen, welcome back to the Bestseller Experiment. How are you doing today?
I am beyond excited. You and I have always had great times together. We both believe that 100% of the people around the planet should have the privilege of reading because, you know, all great readers aren't leaders, but all leaders are readers. And we need more leaders to take the world onward, upward, goodward, and Godward. So 100% of us are economically and physically successful. And I think you agreed, that books are the little rudder, so to speak, and a big ship, a rudder turns it around. Well, we can turn around the economy, we can turn around the world, turn around people's lives, make them happier, healthier, more fulfilled.
Absolutely. And it's incredible to think, Mark, we last spoke Christmas 2020. You were our Christmas special episode 298. And we were treated to the incredible story and, you know, the incredible success and the roller coaster of Chicken Soup for the Soul. But today, I think it'd be fun to get a little bit more personal, because I am absolutely fascinated by what you're up to right now. I mean, you've done so many incredible projects in your life, and now you've had your own life story documented in Relentless. Now, I've read Relentless, absolutely fascinating. I thought I knew a fair bit about you, but little did I know. There's so much more to learn. It's absolutely brilliant. I wanted to ask you, Mark, what was the process like for you in having your biography written?
It was, first of all, it was a surprise. It was beyond exciting. I said, because it was the same time that Isaacson was writing the book on Elon Musk, and he'd written Steve Jobs and Ben Franklin and Einstein and all that. And I was sort of new to biographies because we were being asked to write a biography, and I'd never written one yet. And this lovely woman who is the biggest chicken producer in America, Perdue Chicken, her husband, Frank Perdue, who passed away 17 years ago, built this enormous empire that if you go to buy Costco chicken, you are buying Perdue Chicken, 22 million a week.
Oh my gosh.
She is like, and she's the head of 40,000 ag women and graduated head of her class at Harvard under Henry Kissinger. So she is a substantial woman, but she was in Egypt in the pyramids with one of our close friends, Brad Rotter, a superstar from West Point, and a lovely, lovely man who we played a lot with and travel with. And he said, "You got to meet Mark Victor." And said, no, he's the world's best-selling author. He'd intimidate me. Long story short, from the pyramid, he calls on his cell phone and says, "I got to introduce you to your new best friend." I said, "You're our best friend. What do we need with another one?" Because, you know, if you have 3 best friends during a lifetime, you're doing dang good. Well, anyhow, we meet Missy. She becomes our best friend. We travel with her, talk to her several times a week. Just Crystal, my wife, and I absolutely love, adore, respect, admire her and her whole family. And then she said, "You know, in my family, you cannot be an heiress." And her daddy had created during the Depression and built 400 hotels called Sheraton Hotels, which I'm sure you've stayed at.
I've heard of those, yes.
So she's the only double heiress in America. That's H-E-R-I, heiress. Anyhow, I hope I spelled it right. She said, "I want to write your biography, and I'm going to become world's foremost authority." And I said, "Well, here's all the people to interview." And she interviewed, I guess, 38 or whatever the real number is. I can't remember right now. And then we became not only we became the biography of the year, but we won 10. She won 10 awards. I didn't win 10 awards.
Wow.
You know, and people said, "Oh, I thought I knew Mark Victor Hansen, but boy, that really edified me." And she said, "Do you want me to be honest?" I said, "Absolutely. I'm not going to edit a word. I'm not going to have you take out anything. I want the good, the bad, the ugly, and the whole truth.
Yeah, that's what I found fascinating, actually, is that it was almost a no-hold bar, and very personal. And I think really authentic. The thing for me that made it such a special read was it's the authenticity that came through, not just celebrating incredible successes, but also showing that, you've had challenges. In fact, we talked about some of those when you went bankrupt. Like we talked about that in the last episode, so we won't go over that again. But to actually learn about that, I think gives people incredible insight into the fact that life can be a roller coaster. But what really came through for me, Mark, was that your life story is just a rocket. Like it's one thing after another. It feels like from the moment you came out of your mother's womb, you haven't stopped. Really, I mean, it's incredible. And now, 4 years since we last spoke. I mean, we've spoken obviously between them, but the fact that you've got new projects on the go, just this everlasting dynamo. And I absolutely love the fact that you inspire people just with your energy. I know that was one of the things that came through in the book. But let's talk about, once you saw your biography, to see everything captured in one book, what did that feel like when you actually sat down and read it?
What it inspired me to do is write a different quote than I've ever written, and that was, why you do a biography or an autobiography is because it's the only way you get to live your one life twice. Because I already lived it once, but now I'm looking back at it and I can see why certain things happen and your perception changes. And what the greatest line in the first chapter of the Bible is, as far as I'm concerned, and the story of Joseph Many Color Code is, what you meant for my harm, God meant for my good. Some of those withholds, some of those stoppages that I went over, under, around, or through, they had to happen or I couldn't be here. You and I wouldn't meet. I wouldn't have become world's best-selling nonfiction author. Little stuff that you can't believe. Like I had to have 144 rejections. And then people said, well, you didn't really have that many. I said, I had to think that through, because suddenly I'm getting objection to my objection. And they said, no, you didn't. Jack and I could not show all the pink slips we got from all the publishers that said, kiss, kiss, hug, hug, get out of here, hit the road, Jack.
Yeah.
And the reason is, I had to think about it. The reason is twofold. First of all, I caused them because I interviewed the 101 best-selling fiction, nonfiction authors. And I said, not how do you write? How do you market? How did you sell? How did you sell millions of books? Wayne Dyer or Clive Cussler or Nora Roberts or anyone, because I want to know how to market. Not everybody knows how to write like you and I do. That's not true, but it is a special skill, and thank God I've got it and you've got it. It's one of my unique 4 talents, and I think everyone's got 3 or 4 talents that they can take to polymathness. But then I said, wow, why didn't we show those? Well, because if you show your wife all that rejection, she's going to go, Mark, adios.
Exactly.
Don't you get it? These people don't like you. But as we did books like I did, Chicken Soup for the Writer's Soul, we found Louis L'Amour, everybody got rejected a lot. Stephen King got rejected a lot. Nora Roberts got rejected. And then they end up being, gigantic authors. So I think rejection is what makes you stronger, but we're all going to get attacked. We're all going to have rejection, and you've got to be literally, as an author, you got to be at the front end for sure, rejection proof, and be Teflon and bounce them all off.
Absolutely. Yeah. I know that we both share a love of something I learned about you in your book. We both share a love of playing bass guitar. And, we both know that it's really painful when you start learning to play guitar or bass, but you build the calluses, and it's the calluses. It's the things that make you stronger, that make you a better player. And that's exactly the same with rejection. I think you have to go through. In fact, the more rejections, there might be a math equation here. The more rejections you get earlier on in life, the more successful you are later in life. I know we know many people that could probably tell that story over and over.
Yesterday, I was being interviewed, for a new video series we're doing. And I said, look, I am friends with a guy who's blind, who's one of the best-selling authors, The Ultimate Gift, who I hope you've had on, my buddy Jim Stovall, the wisest man I know. I know a guy who's deaf who can do it. I know a guy who has no arms and no limbs, and Nick, who you may have had on, who's become a superstar. So the only rejection that gets you is self-rejection. At least that's what I think right now. And if you want to object to that objection, I'm willing to go through.
Well, here's the thing, though. What makes a great story? conflict. And so when you talk about your life story, having the challenges that happened makes the story as much as the successes, I think. And so for people listening to this, I mean, let's dive deep into this idea of the Mark Victor Hansen Library. It sounds like your legacy project. Did that come from having your own biography written and thinking, wow, this is something we could do for other people? Tell me a bit about how that came about.
It came up because of COVID. As you know, when we wrote Ask, we had two major talks, one with 11,000 in Washington, D.C., one with 15,000 in Florida. And the promoter calls up and said, "You're fired." And I go, "What? Why?" And he said, "Well, I've lost $5 million and the government shut out all convention centers, so it's not going to happen." Well, I didn't know it was going to squish the book business. We've gone from 19,000 independent bookstores called indies, as you and I know, down to 400. Well, that breaks my heart. These people are good people. They're great people. They're wonderful people. They're loving people. They're well-meaning people. I mean, by you, Powell Books is one of the biggest and the best, and whatever they have, 5 million books or whatever they got in that store, and I've signed there again and again and taken pictures with 400 or 500 people in a signing or whatever the number was, right? They deserve a chance. So I said, well, wait a second. The big publishers have stopped taking people unless they come with a platform like Joe Rogan. Well, getting that platform is rare. I mean, Joe Rogan, he's a rare off. He's like a Michael Jordan. Now, I say the opposite of that. Every one of us has a masterpiece talent we're supposed to bring to the Michael Jordan or Joe Rogan or a Taylor Swift, if that's your shtick. And for me, it's obviously being world's best-selling author, and I love speaking and I love promoting the businesses that I own, and help build clients I have. So the point is, I think that exists for everyone, and there was no opportunity. So Crystal and I, we're with 9 houses, Random House and Hay House and HCI and all that. I said, we're going to create, and Crystal and I loved it, Mark Victor Hansen Library, and that has evolved now to it's becoming Mark Victor Hansen Entertainment, except that's going to change to our name, Crystal Mark Entertainment, because we've got people coming and saying, hey, wow, you guys are writing the highest quality books that are really transformative, because as you know, I say a book's got to be unique. A book has got to be transformative to the reader, and it's got to be inevitable that they like it so much they have what's called pass-along value, as you and I know, hand-off value.
I like the idea of pass off as well, because we were talking a little bit before, weren't we, about how many books Chicken Soup has sold, but then when you think about how many people have read it due to pass along. I talked to someone the other day and I just was asking them, actually my assistant who's in the Philippines, and I said, I'm interviewing Mark tomorrow, do you have any chicken? Oh yeah, I have a number of copies, but most of them I've not got back from my friends. Right? So there you go.
I've been to Asia so much. Let me just tell you, I don't know how many turned in the Philippines, but in India, one book is read on average, they tested by 15 people. And in China, one is read by 12 people. Because in China, as you know, the bookstore is owned by the government, which I'm opposed to. I'm against centralized government. I am for decentralized. And that's really why we created Mark Victor Hansen Library, because we want to give everybody that wants it a shot at getting published, because it's part of the Holy Grail. Everyone ought to have a book. Everyone ought to have an invention. Everyone ought to have a song. Seeing you and I are both musicians, everyone ought to have, because the richest place in the world is a graveyard, and the music is buried with the people. That is a crime, as far as I'm concerned. Poverty only belongs one place: a museum.
Fascinating. So let's talk about the process that people will go through. If someone's listening to this and thinking, I'd love to start documenting, or I'd like for my life to be documented, there's lots of different ways to do that, aren't there? Lots of different options.
Well, I think everybody ought to keep a journal each and every day, and even write down 10 goals in a journal. And one of the goals most people are going to show up with is they ought to have a book. Now, you could do there's only 4 options. You could do nothing, which is a mistake, I think, right? Everybody ought to have an archive of their life. And I've got 50 journals of my life that once I learned about journaling, I got it. And I want to create so much I can't believe, because if you buy the line in the Bible that you were created in the image and likeness of the infinite, then that means you and I are infinite. Now, if you're infinite, you got 3 obligations if you're mimicking the big guy, right? Number 1, a big force, source, talent, whatever you want to do. Number 1, you're here to create, and creating books is a wonderful thing. Number 2 is you're here to contribute, because how many times have books leveraged your life and mine? Just right. And we're going to talk about that. And then number 3, is once you do it, you're supposed to get into surplus so you can be charitable. And the reason we sell more books, as you know, is that we tithe on every book. We say who we're going to give 10% to, but some of my books are still paying 50 years later. So charities like Make-A-Wish and Child Help and Red Cross and Blood Drives and March of Dimes, all those guys are getting money still for Mark Victor Hansen one way or another. And I earned it, but I am gifted. And when you, giving is like water. And I did write the Miracle of Tithing, which says you got to tithe your thankfulness for everything you got. If you can breathe, you got to be thankful. Tithe your thinking, your time, your talent, and all of us got more talent than we could ever use. Your thankfulness, thinking, time, talent, and then last but not least, your treasure. But every church and every organization, philanthropic, goes for treasures, and they miss the big one, because if you get your mind, you get everything else.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And that's such a good way of looking at it as well. Now, one of the things I know that some people will be thinking when they think about their personal life story and their biographies is they might be thinking, I'd like my book out there. I'd like to inspire people. But I think the reason a lot of people want to write it is to capture their life stories for their families, for their loved ones. I mean, I would love to have the biography of my great-great-grandmother. I'd love to have the biography of my great-great-grandfather, because our family goes back to the French Revolution, apparently, and we've got all this history of fleeing France, apparently, and going to Mauritius. There's all this rich history that is literally all we've got is the things on gravestones in Mauritius and France and the UK and Ireland. So for people that want to write their life story, I mean, it's not often talked about, but it doesn't have to be published, does it?
It doesn't. By the way, I did write a $10 book from GD Media that says Speed Write Your Life Story, which is your autobiography. But I really agree with I would love to know. I barely even know what my dad did coming out of, Denmark. Once my uncle, 14 years older than my dad, brought all the Jews into Denmark, and created a black band for the king. And that's a glorious story, but I don't know that at the depth that I would like to know it. I don't know how dad lived through the Depression with mom and World War II and stuff. But then if you go back, what the heck was his father and mother and grandfather? And like, whereas my great teacher in grad school, Dr. Buckminster Fuller, Einstein's best student, inventor of a lot of things and 40 books and all that. But Bucky, as he was affectionately called, his 5 generations back, he had every diary. And his great-great-great-great-grandfather was Ralph Waldo Emerson, who you and I have read and love. And he read all those before he went to Harvard, and then he got 15 doctorates over time. It blows your mind what could have been congealed and saved, and what Mitzi Perdue, she as an heiress in 2 families you can't be an heiress unless you write your biography and share it, at least with the family. You don't have to publish it, and we'll talk about publishing and non-publishing biographies. But a biography does 5 things. First of all, you got to tell people, what were your values? What were the principles that you believed, that you accomplished what you did? What is your philosophy? What are the trials and tribulations? But most importantly, you want to say, if you're going to give money or assets or resources, as you all say, to the family, what are your expectations? And meaning, my older brother was, a blue-collar worker, but he worked for Commonwealth Edison, had a photographic mind, fought my dad and wouldn't go to college, ends up running the nuclear power energy because it was born when he was growing up, and his mind could figure out how to run it for Commonwealth Edison. So he got stock. I never even thought about that. When he died, he had a lot of money. He's way older than I am. And he had 4 kids that don't know money. And Jim Rohn would say, money makes you more of who you are. So if you're bad, you can be bad. If you're good, you can get really good. But my younger brother and I know money, and we said to the 4 kids, let us teach you. Well, they wouldn't let us, right? Because I've spent my life studying money. Money is like a woman, and you need to woo it and make sure. 2 of them are gone now because of drug overdose, because money makes you more of who you are. So money entitles people, and all these rich people say, well, I'm going to give my heirs all this money. Big mistake unless you give the book. And we're writing now for the guy who's made more golf courses than anybody in the world, and is really successful. He builds houses $3 million to $100 million next to the golf courses around the world. But the point is, he wants his heirs, his progeny and grand progenies, I guess if that's how to say it, and if it's wrong, correct me, please, is he wants them to know how he did it and why he did it. And he came from zero. but he didn't want it public. He just wants it for his family. And I think that's noble.
Yeah, I think it's incredible. I mean, my father recently passed away with dementia, but he had dementia for a number of years. And fortunately, I found some documents that were the beginnings of his biography that he'd written long before the dementia kicked in. And those were so priceless because they were just the bits that I could get. And I always say to people, like, don't wait. Don't wait. If we all live a lot longer than we think, if we all live for another 30, 40, 50, 60 years, great, write part 2. But just start documenting today and start the project today, because I think also there's something about, like you talked about journaling earlier, but there's something about the importance of capturing the feeling of the emotion that you're experiencing when you're experiencing it, journaling every day, rather than, trying to think back over the last 50 years about, because then you end up with just more of a timeline of what you did rather than, the emotion and the values, the philosophies that you talked about.
And the juice. Let me just go the other way. Is it because Mitzi Perdue and I have talked about this with Crystal at depth. We think you ought to do one every 10 years because you're a lot different than you were at 10, at 20, at 30, at 40, at 50.
Right.
60. And like I'm 76, but I'm a beginner right now. I'm going to live the 127th options for renewal because, I believe that you figure out what you want, you ask. And number 2 is you put it in writing, and then it's established and then it comes to pass. Because writing your goals is a projection of your future achievements. But I will do that. And I'm obviously writing my own autobiography now called Mark on Mark. But we are writing 7 giant biographies. And one kid is only 32 years old, and Mark Shahaden, and he owns, I don't think it's you're in Canada still, right?
Yes, yeah.
Anyhow, if you come down to California or Arizona, and we hope you'll come visit us here in Scottsdale. He owns Ike's Loves Sandwiches. Well, he owns 132 debt-free sandwich shops, and he's telling everything about how he did, and it's brilliant. And now he started Ike's Donuts, but he's going to own 5,100 because he wants to be second biggest to Subway. Well, if you're a kid and you go, holy cow, this guy in 10 years, look what he did from 0 to 132, and they're all each of them worth about $6 million each. You go, holy cow. And he's figured out, as you know, I teach Grow Rich and Niche, whether it's a book or a business. He put the first one between Oracle in San Francisco and Microsoft, like they're 2 blocks apart. There's only one restaurant. Well, he has 3-hour lines waiting to buy his sandwiches. You go, well, wait a second. That idea needs to be communicated because most people go, well, I'm going to go start a car washing business. Well, good for you, but figure out what to do by taking on the logic boxes of somebody else's biography. If you helped one person, the big guy says you've done a great deal. But my books have now, like you said, and I hope I'm not being humble, but I'm sure I've been read by a billion people. But I literally want to sell 1 billion books to make sure they go out. And I want them in every language, Swahili and Canadese and Telugu, not because I'm important or look, my future days are paid for. My kids and grandkids are fed and educated, but I want everybody to be there. There's more than enough for everyone. One more line. When I was a student ambassador to India, I went to Mahatma Gandhi's 2 houses, and on the wall, his big thing, which nobody ever quotes except me, is that there's enough for everyone's need, but not enough for anyone's greed. And right now we got these greed monsters. They're saying, I'm going to take it all and monopolize the whole world. No, that's the opposite of what I want. I want everybody to be able to have a small business, an enterprise, a book, because a book, when you autograph a book, it doesn't get thrown away. A business card gets thrown away, but a book, fiction, nonfiction, or biography or autobiography doesn't get chucked. It gets kept, and most often it's read. I mean, I think I've signed a few books to you, and look, you read it.
Yeah, it's absolutely incredible. I think as well, for me, when you sit and read somebody's biography or autobiography, you go on a special journey. It's a very unique journey. I mean, you could watch and pick up bits of information, read an interview here, watch a YouTube video there, but to have something documented from start to finish, for me, I almost get transported into like traveling with them in their entire life, and you come out of it. But it's incredible. Like, if your biography starts from when you were a child and right up to kind of almost the present day. And I can, you can read that in 2 days and just get the entire story in one place. Is that the kind of the special juice that you think makes biography so important for people?
Transformative. I mean, if you take the most sold book in the world, which is the Bible, 3.5 million and billion, and I wrote one and sold 70,000 a week at Walmart, Chicken Soup at this old biography where I got little stories in the big story. Yes. And then number two, yes, is that the richest guy here in Scottsdale, who we're doing his biography right now, he read mine and he said, you gave me the courage and the confidence to tell my story because I didn't think anybody would care. And I listened to his story, and this guy started out, his parents he was Italian, and I can't go into his name, but he couldn't afford to eat. So he went across the street and ended up living with a Chinese family that didn't have any kids. He raised 12 chickens, had chicken eggs that he had to sell every day so he could afford to just feed himself because the Chinese family didn't have any money. They just had a bedroom for him. And then he went on to being a water boy at a golf course and ended up buying land and building the best golf courses in the world. And he's totally invisible. He's going to stay invisible. But his story is monumentally good. I want him to share his story. And I said, look, we could put a pseudonym on it. We can do anything. By the way, I've read personally, my grandson called them up, 6,000 biographies. I've read them, maybe not cover to cover, but highlighted them, noted them, started them. The more you have, you can only work with the models that you have in your head. And if you don't have enough models, you can't work.
Yeah, absolutely. No, for me, a biography is rocket fuel. Reading a biography, I come off the back of that and the level of ideas, the level of inspiration that I have, if anyone's listening to this now and is feeling a bit down, a bit stuck with life, not sure what to do, pick up a biography. I promise you it's the best cure ever. Better than anything in the world. So let's talk, Mark, a little bit about, go deeper into the Mark Victor Hansen Library, because one thing that's interesting is there's, I heard a story the other day of a lady who's in her 90s actually, and she was asking, I'd really like to capture my story, but I have no idea how to do it. I don't even have the kind of energy to be able to write it. But what you've created within your library are these different opportunities, depending on, it's almost meeting people wherever they're at, whether they just want their story edited, their story ghostwritten, or what sounds like an absolutely incredible opportunity is actually being interviewed by you personally in what you've called, is it the personal biographies option? Yeah.
And literally we've created the form and the format and the questions that pull out the best in people. And to our credit, if you'll forgive me, I don't think anyone's writing more biographies simultaneously than we are now in ghostwriting them. And by the way, most the celebrity, most the athletes, most the star biographies anywhere were not written by the star, whether it's Dolly Parton, whether it was Elvis Presley, whether it's John Lennon. They don't have time or talent, probably, no offense intended, to do that. They have a ghost, and we're willing to not have our name on it. We're just willing to put their name on it. And then I endorse everyone, put my name, and it's published by the Mark Victor Hansen Mark Victor Hansen Library, which is actually a publishing house now. Mm-hmm. I got great distribution. We got great ability, and everyone's got stories in them. And all of us are told, the people that are watching here are been told, you got a book in you. You got to write that. You really need to write that. That story is tantamount. And what happens is, in our experience, is that people start to write, and then there's no one that hasn't done sequels and prequels. Like Chicken Soup has 254 prequels and 4 movies. And it's so exciting because I don't think your mind comes alive until you fully know yourself, which is the thing Socrates said at Delphi, know thyself. And then the second thing he said that made sense to me is the unexamined life is not worth living. Well, where do you examine your life better than on paper? In other words, you say, well, I just think about it. No. You got to put it down so you look at it in cold, hard type, and if that's too crass, you clean it up.
Yeah, no, but that's also what you were saying earlier about the idea of journaling as well. I think that's self-reflective and also reading back through journals. I was reading my journal, Mark, the other day of my first year at university when I was 20, more than half a lifetime ago for me. And just reading about how I saw the world, and I've got to say something very funny. I was at my dad's 50th birthday as a 20-year-old, having just turned 50 myself. And in my journal, I wrote these words. I said, hanging out at Dad's 50th with a load of old crumblies. And I thought, oh, stabbed me in the heart. It was like karma came back to kick me big time. And I literally read that on my 50th birthday and thought, I'm not that old, am I? But it gave me a real perspective of how I changed through the years. And I think that's the other thing people don't really realize when they're collecting their stories over their lifetime. Reading back things that you wrote as that person of that age is an insight into how you've changed and evolved in terms of thinking, hopefully wisdom, maybe not in my case, but in terms of all those different things. But do you know what I mean? I mean, it's just having that benchmark, that time capsule of how you thought, what was important in your world in your 20s, in your 30s, in your 40s is so incredible.
I want to hit in the word perspective, Mark, because here's a hand, right? There's no question. But there's two different parts of the hand. The top of the hand has, on my case, aging marks. The bottom of the hand is ageless. It's the same back as in your story, 21, right? Look at the top, look at your palm. It's the same as it was when you're 21. Now look at you see some different little, scratches and ridges. And, the point is same hand and you're the same. The spirit of you is there. And what I think a biography does, I've never said this before. That's why I love talking to you, because I always break through. I think the spirit world is where all things are possible. It comes down to the mental world, comes down to the physical world, which generates the results. But here, all things are possible. And the guy that exemplifies that better is Elon Musk with 8 multi-billion-dollar companies. And the people that object to me go, you didn't really write all those books. I said, no, I have help and editors. I've had, 321 editors on 321 books. Of course, I know I have editors, but I do actually do the seminal writing. I love, matter of fact, I woke up in the middle of the night, I woke up again because I'm thrilled with what I'm doing. And why would anyone not live in fulfillment in life?
Well, there was a picture of a new biography that is in the works right now, is coming out next year. And we kind of talked about this chap offline because of, I mentioned about my project and the book I'm writing, Passa Vida, Making Peace with Life. And John Paul DeJoria is a book that you've been working on. And I absolutely, I love the whole spirit of just seeing his smiling face with his peace symbols. Tell me a little bit about the process that you went through with John.
Okay, first of all, he goes by the nickname JP, but John Paul DeJoria everyone knows the end of the story, that he's rich, successful, helpful, has the peace, love, and honor foundation. But what happens is they don't know the beginning and they don't know the middle, which I need to do very quickly. But he's 21 years old. He's got a 4-year-old kid. He's home after knocking doors all day, selling encyclopedia door to door, not doing well at all. Walking up the stairs, his wife said, throw me the car keys. There's a note on our little baby, John Anthony, and just read it. You'll know what to do. He gets up there and it says, I've emptied the bank accounts. I spent all the money into credit cards. I'm stealing the car. You'll never see me again. Oh, man. Nobody knows that story about JP, because that's why you read a biography, because if he can overcome that and become rich with 40 companies that everybody knows names of, he only has a motorcycle, but he has met Hell's Angels and he knows that they have a cookout every night up at Griffith Park in LA. He drives up there and says, look, you guys, I'm not a Hell's Angel, but my wife just took everything I got. I don't have enough money to eat. Would you feed us? They not only fed, but the Hell's Mamas, he never became a Hell's Angel, took care of his baby during the day so he could go build this business called Paul Mitchell, which now has 37,000 beauty salons. And he's got a shampoo that makes your hair shiny and all that. Same product 47 years later, and the book will come out. But then he does the most miraculous projects. He's down in the Caribbean and goes to Barbuda next to Antigua, and a hurricane is wiped out, devastated it. So he says, wait a second, I'm rich, I'll do something about it. He hires the top ichthyologist, fish doctor in the world, and they rebuild the coral, they bring back the turtles, they bring back the fish, they bring back 100% employment. Now he's doing that for 28 islands in the Caribbean. That is a good use of money. Then he goes to Africa, and in Mali, Africa, West Africa, where they got a lot of gold, but there's a crooked government there. We never know about crooked governments, you and I. Anyhow, he said, what do you need? They said, we need water. He personally pays for 44 wells, and then the people grow so much food, they're feeding 5 countries around in Africa. Then in his own main home city, he owns 13 houses, but down in Austin, he feeds 40,000 people a night. This is stories that nobody would know.
Yeah.
They get bite-sized stuff on it. He's a very handsome guy and exceedingly articulate. And when the book releases, he wants to be on your show in January 2025.
Fantastic.
And yes, he did 100 million bottles of Patron. 100 million a month is 1.2 billion a year.
Yeah, it's incredible. And Patron is for some people that don't drink, that is the number one selling tequila brand, isn't it, in the world?
Right. Until now, he's got a new one coming out called Banda. But
amazing stuff.
And we're also going to sell at all of us salons and that because bookstores have been compressed and contracted and stopped. We got to go to other ways to sell books. And it's up to those of us in the business. I'm a writer and all I do is write. No. You got to write the book. You're 10% done. I taught that last time. 90% is you got to market it, hustle it, advertise it, promote it, and you got to do it yourself. You can't depend on a publisher, me or any other publisher. You can't depend. I'll tell you how to do it and show you how to do it. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube by me doing that. I consider myself the Elon Musk of books.
I love it. Absolutely brilliant. Well, Mark, our time has almost come to an end, but I wanted to let people know that if they want to find out more about the Mark Victor Hansen Library and also, about how they can get their book either edited, ghostwritten, or even interviewed by you to write their personal story, plus all the publishing stuff at the back end, which takes away all of the hassle of thinking, how do I get it onto Amazon? And it's all taken care of. Front covers, platforms, launch strategy. It's incredible what you're offering. We've got a very special bonus for you in this podcast. If you pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com/yourlifestory, there's a bonus interview there with Mark where he's going to tell us about his 3 favorite books in fiction, nonfiction, and children's books. And you can also fill out the form there if you want to get in contact with Mark and the team at the library, and we'll forward your details on. So I've got to say, Mark, just thank you so much for spending this incredible time with me today. I am so inspired every time I speak with you. I'm inspired having read your incredible biography, and I can't wait to read your autobiography. When will that likely be out? Is that in the works right now?
It's probably going to take another year or so. That the cliche is begun is half done. Well, you got to begin, and Mark told you how you can get with us, and between he and I, we want to help elevate the book business to where it belongs. We got to get reading back and get everybody reading and leading. And all leadership starts with self-leadership, where everyone needs to read 20 minutes a day. That's a minimum. And you got to get your kids to read. Have a reading session at your house each and every day for you, your spouse, and your kids or grandkids. In my case, the grandkids come over and they read out loud to Grampy. And these kids are superstars. We can do all of it.
Mark, I just want to thank you again for your time. Thank you so much. And just for everyone listening to this, if you've been inspired by what you've heard today, if you'd like to get your biography written or write your biography with the help of Mark and his team, pop along to bestsellerexperiment.com/yourlifestory. Thank you so much, Mark. What are your writing dreams? Finishing that book? Quitting the day job? Becoming a best-selling author? Since 2016, we've interviewed and studied the advice of over 500 best-selling authors who've collectively sold over 1 billion books. And in the Bestseller Academy, we've incorporated powerful and proven strategies for success, inspiring fiction and non-fiction authors just like you to reach new heights and write their best book ever. Ready to take your writing to the next level with accountability, craft, coaching, and the most inspiring and exclusive community of like-minded writers? Well, your bestseller dreams are just a click away. Join us today at bestsellerexperiment.com/academy. That's bestsellerexperiment.com/academy.